All right, thanks for staying up with us as we dive into all things people, power, and politics. I'm Ruparaj. A busy night of news, so let's jump right in. We have you covered with a recap of Senator JD Vance's RNC speech that ended just moments ago. He mentioned Michigan several times, more in his speech just coming up in a few minutes here. But first, big news, a COVID diagnosis that couldn't have come at a worse time for President Biden. He was supposed to meet with a Latino civil rights organization in Las Vegas, but canceled at the last minute when he tested positive. He'd been mingling with customers at a restaurant right before the diagnosis. Now, the White House says Biden has mild symptoms. Tonight, he's at his Delaware home where he will isolate. You know, from Sin City to the Badger State, Senator JD Vance introduced himself to the country as vice presidential nominee. But before we get into what he said, we wanted to get a pulse check about Vance and what you want to see after this election in general.
Basically just asking everybody what they think of the new vice presidential pick.
Well, I hope he rises to the occasion and brings us civility to the campaign and speaks intelligently.
I like the guy.
So good pick for you?
Yes.
I just want this country better. Make the grocery prices go down.
I think the government is against the people. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, people are deceived. And it's all about the money.
All right, so Senator Vance took the stage a little after 10:30 local time here, and very quickly he praised former President Trump for how he handled the aftermath of the assassination attempt this weekend and his call for unity right after.
Now consider what they said. They said he was a tyrant. They said he must be stopped at all costs. But how did he respond? He called for national unity, for national calm, literally right after an assassin nearly took his life.
You know, that's something that's not just up to the candidates, it's up to all of us to make sure that we exert that type of unity to one another as neighbors, right? Well, we know just how important Michigan will be in this year's election, a key swing state. Trump won it in 2016, Biden won it in 2020, and Vance appealed to a key group of Metro Detroiters in his speech tonight.
This moment is not about me, it's about all of us, and it's about who we're fighting for. It's about the auto worker in Michigan wondering why out-of-touch politicians are destroying their jobs. It's about the factory worker in Wisconsin who makes things with their hands and is proud of American craftsmanship. It's about the energy worker in Pennsylvania and Ohio who doesn't understand why Joe Biden is willing to buy energy from tin-pot dictators across the world when he could buy it from his own citizens right here in our own country.
And that wasn't the only time Michigan was mentioned in Vance's speech. He touched on it early on when a chant you'd normally hear at Ohio State football games popped up there. Take a listen.
O-H-I-O, O-H-I-O. You guys, we're gonna chill with the Ohio love. We gotta win Michigan too here, so.
You know, the speech by Senator Vance effectively a warm-up act for what the world is waiting to see tomorrow, former President Donald Trump. And the speech, he says, that he's rewriting after nearly being assassinated this weekend. Our guy on the ground, Fox's Jason Calvi, joins us from the RNC in Milwaukee tonight. And Jason, I'd imagine there's a ton of anticipation surrounding the big speech, especially since we've seen the former president almost each and every day of this convention.
Yeah, that is right. He has been here. He's been in this main convention site, the Fiserv Forum, the home of the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's been wearing. You've been seeing him with that ear bandage. And actually, if you look at some of the crowd here, this is a delegation from Arizona. They are actually wearing ear bandages right now in solidarity with former President Donald Trump. Former President Donald Trump today, before the speaking started, actually took the stage here in Milwaukee as a warm-up, as to kind of check out the stage, see the podium, see the teleprompter, see the lights, see all that. So he's definitely getting ready for tomorrow. And we actually spoke with his son, Donald Trump Jr., who said that his father, the former president, has changed his speech significantly. He said, and this is a paraphrase, he threw the old one in the trash and started from scratch in light of what happened on Saturday, nearly being killed, an assassination attempt after this assassination attempt.
Yeah. Jason, I know that you have a lot going on behind you as you are kind of talking, as people are trying to listen to the speakers, but I do have to ask you a little bit about, the anticipation of this former president. You say that the speech is going to change. What are you hearing relative to that unity message that you heard former President Trump talk about? Do you think it's going to be a call on Biden and the Democrats to do more unity, or is he saying we all have to be more unified?
That message of unity we've definitely seen here, Roop, with the former competitors of former President Donald Trump, those who were in the primary against him, speaking last night and coming out and trying to get their supporters to back the former president, saying, hey, they all got to be on board. As far as that message of unity, it's in light of the fact that he could have been killed. I mean, potentially that bullet could have potentially killed him on Saturday, and I think that really changed it. As far as exactly what he's going to get into, it's really hard to get a preview because the aides and advisors they always say they don't want to get ahead of the president, and so they're a little bit tight-lipped, but that's what they're saying is that Don Jr., the speech has been completely changed and thrown out in light of that assassination attempt, so we'll see exactly what it comes out. But as far as the anticipation, there's a ton of anticipation here. The crowd has been lit on fire every time he comes out. It came out as a surprise on Monday, came out again on Tuesday, and so the crowd's really ready to hear from him and really be speaking to the world for the first time on that main stage behind me here in Fiserv Forum.
Jason, we only have like 10 seconds left, but give me an idea. How many people are wearing those ear bandages in support and solidarity of the former president? You showed me a few people in the Arizona delegation. Are there other people from other delegations wearing that white bandage as well?
We've seen some. I definitely think that this is a larger group here with Arizona that has those ear bandages. Maybe 10 people. Definitely the minority here inside Fiserv Forum. But something to watch as they say they want to really show a sign of support to that former president.
Yeah, this is an interesting time in our history, and certainly for the Republicans tonight, and going into the rest of this week, a very important time. Jason Calvi for us in Milwaukee. Thanks for that report.
In the aftermath of this weekend's shooting, one of the questions we now confront is about the way we should engage with one another in this campaign. On Sunday evening, our President Joe Biden issued a call for unity. And there must be unity around the idea that while our nation's history has been scarred by political violence, violence is never acceptable.
Yeah, all of this as Vance's Democratic counterpart makes a stop in West Michigan today. Vice President Kamala Harris, with a big smile on her face, waving at people in Kalamazoo, Michigan. She addressed the attack on former President Trump, as you heard there, adding nobody should have to fear for their own safety or the safety of their loved ones because they serve in public office. On top of dealing with a COVID diagnosis, President Biden is also dealing with a new VP NORC poll, and it's not looking good. It shows nearly 2/3 of Democrats say Biden should withdraw, as well as another Democratic defection on Capitol Hill. And this one is pretty big. It's from California Congressman Adam Schiff. Remember him? He was the prosecutor in Trump's first impeachment trial. Schiff says while he knows it's Biden's decision, he thinks it's time to pass the torch on, and Biden would secure his legacy of leadership by letting the party defeat Trump in this year's election. But there's a new proposal the president could use to try and win over voters, and it involves a source of controversy the last several years. The U.S. Supreme Court. A report says Biden's seriously considering several reforms that could completely reshape the nation's highest court. And it'd be an about-face for Biden, who's resisted calls to change it. Those changes would include establishing term limits for justices, which, as you of course know from school government classes, is a major shift from the lifetime appointments that they have right now. He's also considering something else. He's considering an ethics code enforceable by the law. And finally, the code the justices follow right now is enforced by the justices. Any changes would require congressional approval. He's also considering, Biden is calling for a constitutional amendment to end the broad immunity for presidents granted by the court, as you know, during this term to former President Trump. So a lot going on with the court and this president. The question, though, tonight of should Biden stay or should he go, it is certainly dividing the Democratic Party even after that debate debacle. One of his big supporters, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, is in the hot seat right here in Studio C. What she says about the calls for him to drop out. That's coming up next. Now on the Pulse, diving into all things people, power, and politics. I don't need to tell you how wild of a week it's been in the political world. This debut of this show couldn't have come at a better time, so we can unpack so many of these things. And joining us to do that, Congresswoman Haley Stevens. She is in the hot seat tonight. Always good to see you on your busy schedule. We thank you for joining us here tonight.
Thrilled to be here.
All right, let's talk about one of the big headlines right away. What do you know about how President Biden is doing? It's reported that he does have COVID. He has some upper respiratory issues, but mild symptoms. What else do we know about how he's doing right now and what's going to happen?
Well, it's like we can't get a break from these stressful headlines with presidential candidates. I will say that he was campaigning in Nevada. He was in Las Vegas. He was speaking to the NAACP. I know he was doing more in that state, given that it's a swing state, and we've got a handful of important races going on there as well. And it was reported that he has a mild case of COVID, mild symptoms, but obviously taking the precautions that he needs. And he's certainly not the only one who has COVID right now. We're seeing, that summer wave kick back up, and people need to be vigilant, take it seriously. If they're exhibiting symptoms, obviously get tested, and he'll continue to do what's right.
But as a Democrat and as someone who obviously advocates for this man, this couldn't have come at a worse time. This is campaign nerve central. This is the time to be out and about, and this is a man who's had to defend his reputation for being older and tired, and that's what he was trying to push against the last few weeks, the last few days, and now he has to go isolate. Worst timing ever, right?
Yeah, and look, we also know that Donald Trump has been hiding out on his golf course before the tragedy struck him, and I know President Biden was showcasing, hey, I've done 20 events since the debate, but I haven't really seen former President Trump out there. So look, it does feel like every day carries so much weight as we're in that kind of 100-day march to the election, and it's a big election, and there's a lot of emotions, and I think something that the horrific events from Saturday reminded us is that we really are all Americans. I mean, I saw the people at that rally. My heart just broke. My heart breaks for the family of the individual who lost their life, and certainly, all who became victims of gun violence that day. That's never anything you want to see, particularly the seriousness of what has now been reported as an assassination attempt against our former president and the leading candidate on the Republican ticket.
What's so disturbing to so many is the fact that you have people like President Biden who makes a call to the former president. Trump actually says it was a very nice call and he appreciated him calling. You have Jocelyn Benson, Haley Stevens, Governor Whitmer, people from across the country saying we condemn this. But then you look at social media and it's like the face of evil in everyday neighbors and Americans saying things like he missed and saying things like this was a bad shot. This is the kind of inexcusable rhetoric that nobody should be on board with. How do you as a Democrat tell your followers and the people who love Biden and love the Democrats to reel that in?
Yeah, and I wish I could spend all my time responding to that rhetoric, and it's kind of why I don't spend a lot of time on X or Twitter and social media. And sometimes I remember during the COVID shutdown period, I did get back on my personal Facebook to connect with people and hear from them. But
this has to be condemned, doesn't it? That kind of
absolutely. Oh my gosh, no one should be saying something that hateful, and we really don't want it. And I'm going to tell you, Roop, I was with a group of Democrats in Waterford at an Oakland County park when the news broke at 6:30 that the president had been shot, and we all embraced in horror. We just really were crestfallen. We didn't, the story was unfolding. We didn't know what had happened, and we have to be vehement. The words, the language that can lead to actions. Obviously, as we're learning more about the shooter and their motives, that are really quite mercurial. This was an alone actor. This was someone who was maybe depressed. They had access to weapons. They regularly went to gun ranges, and they didn't know. The FBI didn't know that he was going to do that, and he did.
And he did. And there's so much more of the investigation that I know you'll be keeping eyes on. We'll be keeping eyes on.
Congress will be having investigations.
I was going to say that's very important, that the congressional investigation into how this could happen. And the head of the Secret Service has to stand up and face the music and face the heat, because this was obviously a breach.
It was a breach.
Representative Adam Schiff earlier today calling on Biden to step down. Schiff is a huge name in the Democratic Party. He's a colleague of yours.
Yeah.
How much of this is actually happening within the hallowed chambers of people talking amongst themselves, wondering if Biden can do this?
Yeah, I was dumbfounded to hear that today. In fact, just because we came off of this rally here in Michigan that was so vibrant, that was so exciting. There were so many people who came, more than we had capacity to have at the rally site at Renaissance High School.
But do you see why people like Schiff and others are still concerned about him? Do you see that when you watch the president?
You know, look, the president was in Northville at the Garage, a really great restaurant I did a lot of campaigning in, packed room, talked to everyone off script for 60 minutes, engaged the crowd. It was engaging little kids, cracked jokes, you know, talking about his vision, talking about his record. It was really exciting. But the most exciting thing in Northville on Friday was the crowd of hundreds that just amassed in downtown Northville to say hi to the president, to cheer him on. Of course, there were some people who ran with their, you know, right to life signs and things like that. But it was an overwhelming crowd. And I stopped to talk to him. I said, how did you hear about this? Or why are you here? And they just said, we're walking down the street and we heard the president was here. Northville is a swing community.
Totally.
So that gives me so much hope for his presidency.
When you have people like George Clooney, who's, by the way, people say, why do you care about George Clooney? He's a mega donor. He collects money for this president. And then you have people like Adam Schiff. What is going on? Is it a fractured party when it comes to supporting this president?
No, it's a healthy party. You know, I'm going to tell you something. 6 of my Republican colleagues from Michigan were either from 2018, so from Trump's arrival to today, either left the party and impeached the president or were voted out. My own predecessor, you know, Dave Trott, is no longer Republican and wrote into the Atlantic that he supported impeachment of Donald Trump. So we don't have this ferocity or this anger, and I'm not here to debate George Clooney or Adam Schiff, but what I am here to do is do what I've been doing since, you know, last year with all of our great Democrats, this amazing campaign that we're building in Michigan, and that's my job, right? I go to Washington, you send me to the United States Congress on behalf of Oakland County to showcase what we believe, what we're hearing, and I am fielding concerns about, you know, nerves. Okay, it's real. It's a third time with Donald Trump on the ticket. I don't want, you know, a lot of people don't want to see him come back.
But you're doing your part to support this president right now.
We have to support him, and you know, and I was with him all day on Friday. You know, he was on top of it, and he told everyone. He said, "Listen, I am older. I don't debate like I used to. I don't debate, you know, walk like I used to, and stuff like that." But here's the thing: ask yourself, has Joe Biden ever let you down? Has this administration let you down? Because the last time I checked, not only have we passed incredible legislation, largest climate bill in history, the CHIPS Act for manufacturing, COVID rescue, but it's been executed flawlessly.
And I think that that's going to be up to all the voters. That question that you asked, has Joe Biden let you down? And the voters will decide that coming up in November. And I want to thank you for your time. It's always a great conversation. Thanks for joining us here. Congresswoman Haley Stevens here on The Pulse. Well, the assassination attempt at former President Trump dominating the headlines and social media, but a post by Trump himself is stirring up a bit of controversy. What he said and what you have to say about it when we take your pulse next. Welcome back. Back now on The Pulse, diving headfirst into everything people, power, and politics. You know, since that gunman tried to assassinate former President Donald Trump over the weekend, there have been calls to cool the temperature of American politics from both sides. But then this Truth Social post by Trump. He posted a meme on Truth Social with a photo of him holding his fist up after the shooting that says, "Trump versus Bullet." Then on the bottom, there's a picture of President Biden tripping on the stairs that says, "Biden versus stairs." So we wanted to get a pulse check with you, asking if this is okay or over the line. Take a look. All right, Elisa from Tecumseh with us here on The Pulse tonight. You saw the post on Truth Social. What did you think?
I mean, I just think it's too much at this point. I think we're getting to a point where the two candidates, Trump and Biden, regardless of what party you even fall in. It's now becoming a game of who can one-up the other one, which I think is distracting people from what really matters.
Rachel from Detroit joins us on the Pulse. You saw the meme. You heard former President Trump saying he's going to talk about unity on Thursday night, and then you saw that meme. You have some thoughts on that?
I do. I think the meme takes it way too far. I believe we have gotten away from civil discourse and politics because all of these things like memes and jokes are taking it away from the actual issues that impact us, could impact us in our day-to-day lives. It's taken away from the issues. I want to hear more about the economy. I want to hear more about immigration. I want to hear about how we're actually doing things in this country that affect me as like the average American.
You know, but some viewers on social media completely disagree. In fact, Michael says, quote, he just had more trouble climbing stairs onto a plane. It's not tasteless. Matthew had an equally succinct response to that question. He says, quote, the person who gets shot gets to joke about being shot. But that does bring up to a bigger question about society and something I touched on earlier this week. How do we get back to having a conversation with people we disagree with and still come out of it on good terms? Well, we spoke with a relationship expert, Dr. Warren Farrell, who says it's all about changing your mindset and coming into the conversation with the right attitude. Specifically, he tells us that we naturally think of any differences in things like values, religion, or maybe politics as a criticism of us, basically telling us we're wrong. And that puts us on the defense.
When people had different values and different perspectives, we thought of it as a criticism of us, and the criticism means that we could be seen as a potential enemy. And so therefore it was biologically natural to build up our defenses and kill the enemy before the enemy killed us. So so if we don't change that internal headset, mental headset first, we're going to really be seeing people as the enemy.
Bottom line, Farrell says make sure the person feels heard when you have a discussion or argument, and show the person that while you might disagree, you still do care. After all, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, fighting about them with people that you actually love. These two men, people you probably will never even meet. And so why do it? Why not maintain the relationships in your own home? The doctor had a lot of good things to say. Well, that is the Pulse on this hectic night in a wild election cycle. And we are just getting started. This show started less than 2 weeks ago with the idea that you, not the pundits, come first. This is your show. With that, hit me up on social media or via email and let me know your thoughts. And if you see me around town with this phone, I may ask you what you think. Your comments could end up right here on television. I'm Roop Raj. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.